Thanks for coming on the Young Entrepreneurs Show with JC.
It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm really excited, and for our listeners and for those that are watching, we are in your fantastic studios here in Perth, Western Australia. Podwave is your business, which we're going to get into. But I want to take a step back because I want to know about Ben. What were you like as a high school student? Were you entrepreneurial? Did you think about business? And then we're going to get to today and what you're doing with Podwave. But I want to go back. Like, what were you like as a student?
I think I was the prime example of someone that liked learning but did it at my own speed.
Yeah, okay.
From very early on, I remember me and my mate in the street decided one afternoon that we were going to start a car washing business because we saw lots of cars. So we went around with a vacuum and we'd do a bundle. And as it turned out, very cheap. Lots of people loved it. $4 for a wash, $4 for an internal clean, and then a $7 combo. We got a lot of $7 combos.
How did you come up with that? This is like the lemonade stand coming to life, right?
Yeah.
This is what I love.
I think it was just...
So you were entrepreneurial.
We made a little flyer on like Microsoft Word when it had the quintessential fonts that would come up. We had this big
I think everyone remembers that.
Car wash word.
Yep.
And then we really just had seen... I think it was a party or something on the street. We're like, God, there's so many cars and there's a bunch of dirty ones, either big Jeeps or something. And we very quickly, as we went down that path, realised that was the wrong market because that took a lot longer to clean the big SUV as opposed to the small little Golf. But we did that and, even we spent most weekends doing it or trialing it. It might have been over a school holiday.
What age?
I probably would have been about 11 or 12 at the time.
Yeah, see, that's still young.
Yeah.
And where did this come from? Did you see other people doing it? Were your parents entrepreneurial? Where does this come from? Because you don't just, you and your mate, just all of a sudden start, making flyers and start, creating a business. Where does this spark come from, do you think?
Probably a combination of our parents saying, get out of the house and do something.
Yeah, okay.
And combined with...
Bless our parents.
Yeah, combined with that age when you get like pocket money or something to go buy sweets at the shop or do something.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I remember seeing the flyer and being like, that's sick, I can't believe I found it. I found it a couple months ago, even recently.
Stop.
But the whole idea was just purely based on the fact that we saw cars, they were dirty, and we're like, well, let's just go knock on doors and see if people would do it. And as we found out, it was very popular, but we got very tired because it was two of us and we had hundreds of people wanting their cars and we're like, this actually isn't great bang for buck. We were giving people an absolute steal.
So can I ask, how much money did you make out of all this? And was it over a period of a year?
No, we literally, I think it was over the school holidays.
School holidays,
yeah,
okay.
So it might have been a 2-week period.
Classic high school entrepreneur, yeah.
And we probably did maybe a 2-week period, not even every day, because there'd be days where we're like, we've done back-to-back, we can't be bothered.
Yep.
We probably did... probably about $200 cash in coins.
Hey, that's some good coin.
Yeah.
As a young person, that's pretty good.
We looked at that and we sort of were like, I think either one of our parents at the time was like, well, we think about how many hours you've done, what did that equate to? And we're like, a lot of work for money, but it was tough going. And we never really went back to it because we were like, kind of got, sore hands and in the sun all day and all the other things.
Let's find another way to make some money. What was your friend's name?
Billy at the time.
Oh, shout out to Billy.
Yeah.
Billy and Ben. Hey, Billy and Ben's car wash.
As you can imagine, it rolled off the tongue. Some people were like, Billy and Ben washing cars.
Ben washing cars.
Yeah.
So tell me, what was the feeling like earning of your own money? That first, because we always talk about in startup land, your first customer. When you get that first bit of money, what was that like as a young person for you and Billy?
I mean, it was surreal because you never really think you can sell something until someone gives you the coins. And then
100.
as simple as it was, dropping some of them, again, great. Parents would tip you because they even felt $8 for a full detail or $7 was a bit of a win for them. So, we'd get the occasional, $12 or I remember one person gave us a $20 note and we were like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
But I think the first realisation when they're dropping coins in there, we're like, no, this is actually not as difficult as we thought.
Yeah.
We never thought about all the other complications of, resources, how much we just borrowed everything from the parents' laundry for cleaning. And then we were like, we need to buy soap.
Oh, yeah.
Soap's this
the,
much.
The cost of goods. The cost of goods to run.
Yeah, we were like,
the margin.
We're not actually doing all right, but we're just going to keep getting it off our parents for the meantime.
Okay.
And I don't know, it was one of that like, oh, wow, we can actually sell it and people wanted it.
Okay, so what happens after this now? You're 11, 12 years old. You and Billy have got the entrepreneurial hook, the bug. What happens next for you?
Well, I'd always had a fascination with film and production.
Okay.
So then as I went into high school, again, enjoyed being there. And it was probably that age where, and I was quite fortunate, you got a Mac computer and was learning all the editing softwares. You had photo booth and you could muck around and do almost like on a roller coaster and muck around without effects. And then there was the iMovie and sort of making home movies and converting it into some sort of montage. YouTube was starting to infect everything. And all of a sudden it was like content could be made, and borrow my dad's Kodak camera at the time, which had a nice, almost fold out device that would plug directly into your computer. So it was like instantly moving stuff. I ended up doing some work for him and a few of his mates and some gyms in the area just because I knew how to do the simplest of edits. So I'd always do that. And then, parallel, I was working at a sports centre called Revolution Sports, doing birthday parties for kids. And as I sort of progressed through that rank, learning how to take on competitions and run junior sports competitions, and even at an early age while at high school dealing with mums and dads that are very, as you can imagine, between 3:30 and 5:50, there's a deadline and there's certain things that need to be in a routine. And for a kid that was just like, oh, I'm finished school, I don't really care, trying to learn how to balance those expectations was interesting, and had to quickly learn how to deal with adults and I guess frustrations, and trying to communicate why I'm not as focused on this as I would like to, but you sort of learn that and then you get better skill sets.
I guess what you're talking about is now the development of your passion for, like I said, media, if I'm going to call it that. And, obviously we're going to talk about today and where we're at in terms of Podwave.
Yeah.
Because that's really the fruition of all these things that's happening
in the past.
For you as Ben, as a young person. Can you tell me, though, there's also our listeners that are in school, particularly those in high school, that are thinking about a career and thinking about, what is my purpose? What is my passion? What path do I go? And it's not changed since I was in school too, where there's this pressure of, what do I do now?
Yeah.
What was that like for you? Did you feel like you'd found that film media was going to be your thing and you made decisions accordingly, or were you still not sure?
Honestly, wasn't sure. It was one of, like, looking back at it now, fascinating to see that something that I always loved and enjoyed could pivot into a career.
Yeah.
I never really had seen myself as going down the cinematography and editing and the aspirations to do Hollywood productions. I was just like, I enjoyed helping my dad's mate or whoever to record some content because that's what they wanted to try and dabble with, and I knew how to do it. And I was kind of quite fortunate to be in the room with gym owners and doctors and just sort of help them try and communicate and learn a lot from my dad in that media training essence. But I very much finished school, and when I did that, I went to UWA and did marketing communications. The only reason I did...
Oh, so you didn't do media?
No.
Okay.
The only reason I picked marketing is because I had that orientation day at UWA where you sort of got to see a slither of what accounting looks like and what management looks like and watch HR. And it's edged to my brain, but I remember the marketing lady came in. She had, I think it was a morning, she had a bowl of strawberries and a bowl of chocolates.
Right.
And she came in and she said, I want everyone to take one of just one of either the strawberry or the chocolate. And this was about 10:30 in the morning. And the bulk of people went to the strawberry. And then she sort of afterwards was like, well, why did everyone go for the strawberry? And people were like, oh, the time of day, you're more in tune with breakfast, wanting to have something probably on the healthier side. Chocolate might be in the afternoon. And then she was talking about the layering of marketing and some of the reasons behind our psychology of why you wanted to go for the strawberry over the chocolate. And that was the simple moment that I was like, this is cool. Like, understanding why I made that decision subconsciously without even understanding the marketing component of it made me go, all right, I'm going to do marketing. So then I enrolled in marketing and sort of dipped your toe in all the foundation units and was like, I'm not great with numbers, probably similar with the washing of the cars. I'll stick with marketing and the creative space, which probably had tangents with the video and editing side of things.
Isn't it amazing that it just takes one person?
Yeah. Yeah, I always think about it. I was like, I either got duped or it was a great pitch from her to get me to do marketing.
That's why I asked the question, because there's always someone in someone's point in life, whether you're a founder or not, doesn't really matter. But there's always someone along your journey, because your journey's never linear, your career journey. There's someone that creates a spark or shares a story, an analogy that allows you to go, I want to do that.
Yeah. And the worst thing is I never will be able to remember her name and may
and
not
that's
even be
the crazy
there.
thing about it is that
It's just
normally
that
these people are
decision.
strangers or people that just come in for a brief part of your life. But most people remember that time and how they felt, not necessarily the person. But that's interesting. Okay, so let's go through university. So you're now in marketing.
Yeah.
You're loving it. You're getting a feel of it. Walk me through then what happens after university. So you get your degree. What happens next?
Well, even when I was at uni, I was called the ghost because you'd be fortunate if you
ghost.
saw me on campus because I
right.
really
That's a good one.
refrained from being there. And that was sort of the joke that a lot of my high school mates that were also there would say. So I was very much a toe in university, doing what I needed to do, but then working at the sports centre and trying to get experience wherever I could. So my dad was and still is the medical advisor for Little Green Farmer. He sort of said, I want to get some market experience. He was getting involved in this startup and he said, well, how about I do an email introduction? You can go and meet the team and see if you can get anything for yourself. So he did the email introduction. I then had a coffee with Paul Lung, the now managing director, and Celia Young, who's the head of marketing there. And I had a coffee with them, sort of just said, look, I'm a young kid. I want experience. Is there anything? I'll do the coffee runs, pretty much everything you read in every entrepreneur book. Like, just give me anything to try and do. So I got in doing a few hours on a Wednesday and was doing that for almost the last 6 to 12 months of my university career with the full intention that, if I hung around and became furniture, they might give me some work or job or whatever. And I was fascinated with the industry because it was a new product or new sector at the time, still is, but it was something that marketing hadn't ever touched. It was how do you market and educate consumers about medicinal cannabis when everything is saying you can't, and trying to pivot ways through that. It was a challenge and I was interested. So did that after graduating for quite a few years and sort of learnt various skills and traits through that, and a little bit of media and editing along the way to help with patients understanding when they have medication, how to open and use the bottle and all this. And I was the one that helped with them and create and direct that really. So
we're going to talk about, because you described a lot about your attitude to the opportunity that you were given. So we'll talk about that. But I want to just quickly, because you very quickly talked about the door that got opened to you. And that's actually another big piece in everyone's journey, right? Yeah. Is we always remember those that opened a door for us.
Yeah.
Because this sounds like, because you said it very quickly and then you started talking about the whole experience and the opportunity, right? But I just want to go back to, the door being opened. I think we're ever grateful, and I know you've got someone in the studio today that you're now passing it forward, this opportunity to people that you can now open doors for. Well, what was that like? I mean, for you, in terms of someone opening a door, and obviously it was a family member in this case, but what was that like for you? Well,
in a weird sense, I draw parallels back to when I would do the car washing. The door is open, but then it's up to you to figure out what to do next.
Yeah.
So, the email introduction, I had to ask my dad and he was like, yeah, I can do it, but the rest is going to be on you. So for me to rock up and then actually show interest and really use my own attitude to try and go, give me something, and realize not overthinking it, not going, oh my God, they're going to hate me, they're going to not even consider me. Yeah. Just be myself and be like, control what you can control. And that's what I sort of say all the time. I was Ben, like, meet them, have a chat.
I think you ran through that door. I think the door was open a little bit, I think. And this is really important, right? Because a lot of people, doors could be open, but what do you do with that?
Yeah.
Like you said,
what are the decisions to go through it?
Yeah. Do you go through it or walk past it? That's the other thing I've come to realize in life is that not everyone gets to, walk through an open door. No. Some people might just walk past. Yeah. But it sounds like you run through. Anyway, so you come back to your attitude. That's a big piece, isn't it? Because you just were willing to, like I said, make coffees and run errands and so forth. What advice would you give then to people that if a door is open or slightly open, what advice would you give them based on your experience? Because you're come out the other end now.
Yeah.
You're in this fabulous studios of Podwave. What advice would you give to young people that around opportunity?
My biggest consideration was always control what you can control and act on it.
Yeah, right.
So I think a lot of young people, and you see it a lot now with the prevalence of mental health and and anxiety, there's a lot of second guessing and just believing that, you know, what if this happens, and what if this happens, blah, 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 blah. And my sort of best advice is that be in the moment. You can control yourself. You can't control or ever understand how else someone's going to react, but be confident in the fact that you can sit there, show them what you've got. And I never really look at something as a mistake, because even if that didn't happen, I would have been like, all right, I've gone out, I've met people I've never met before in executive positions. Maybe I didn't get that one, but I can go, all right, how can I maybe refine that? Not be incredibly critical, but be like, all right, I've learned a little bit about just the handshake or the body posture or the eye contact when meeting these people, and just constantly think it's not a mistake, maybe didn't get it, but I can improve on it and utilize it. Because I think so many people would be knocked back and be like, oh, I'm awful, I'm terrible, they don't like me. And I was like, well, don't think like that. You're you. There's always going to be someone that respects that for whatever reason. Doesn't have to be everyone, but going with that mindset, and I think that puts you in good stead.
Great advice, mate. So you grab this opportunity, you're learning, you're meeting new people. How do you get into podcasting?
After COVID, I resigned from Little Green Farmer, and I decided I'm a big sportsman. I play a sport called floorball, and we won't go down that rabbit hole.
Hey, that's a whole podcast in itself.
Exactly.
Yep.
And I decided with a few teammates of mine that we wanted to dip our toe in the international level. So resigned, decided to go to Europe and play in the Czech Republic for 3 and a bit months in the lead up to World Championships. So I was like, done my work from home, I've done my grind. I did a little bit of fun looking at stocks and investing, as every sort of person was doing at that time. Went, enjoyed myself, and came back in 2023 trying to apply for jobs left, right and centre in marketing, sales, anything. Given it was December, January, so I know a lot of people would have been away. So I sort of, over that 8 weeks, was like, geez, no one's enjoying anything that I'm putting out. But again, I was sort of saying, okay, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. I think I'm still relatively capable of doing things, but I just haven't found the right person or the right interview yet. And I caught up for a coffee with another person that went to the gym that I go to, and sort of said, look, I'm trying to find some things. Have you got anything in the marketing, communication space, just the coffee? And he was sort of saying they do videos for listed companies. And I sort of heard that, and I said, well, have you considered a podcast? Just out of the blue. Never intention of doing it. And he's like, oh, like, I thought about it, but, you know, we're not really there. And I just said, well, how about I sort of give you some ideas? Maybe I can host it and try and do this for you. Not intending that I'd be sitting in the room with CEOs and directors of large companies, but just as let's see if I can almost fake it till I make it in a pure sense, but be like, I know how to edit, I know how to film, but podcasting, never done. I'll just try. So they were like, okay, done. They booked in an interview with a guy called Dr. Dennis Jensen, and I rocked up to a boardroom, pretty much going to put on a hat and try and ask this guy about copper assets in Queensland. And I had, you know, a spatter of an idea of what mining was, purely from a little bit of investing, you could call it back then, but nothing major. And used that one interview. Everything went wrong. Had to just figure it out on the spot.
Winged it.
Yep. Had another 2 interviews, ended up getting 3 under my belt. Had to figure out the whole scheduling, how to get it on Spotify, Apple. Wasn't even looking at the video, just audio. Just trying to get something up to be like, hey, I've done it. And I pretty much learned how to podcast out of a backpack. And I'd rock up to these boardrooms in various places in Perth, set up 2 mics like we're here today, and pretty much record into my computer and hope that things would go right. And I got to meet some wicked and awesome people. And as I sort of did more, I learned more about conversation technique, how to get the best out of guests and how to make them feel comfortable, and progressively added in the layers from 1 camera to 2 to 3, and very quickly started realizing, geez, there's a lot to think about as just a person trying to host and invite the guest and do the research and be attentive and make sure the cameras are on. And all this was just like, I've got to find ways to make this easier for me. So that spiraled down the whole podcast realm, realistically. And flash forward, I've done 128 interviews for that show. And
wow, what's the show called?
The Market Bull Podcast.
Okay.
Yeah, and spoken with some amazing people, gone down the monetization route, gone down the whole try and build a brand, but simultaneously the opportunity opened for Podwave Studios last year, again, the small world of Perth, to provide what I do for myself, but as a service for people in Perth.
Let's get into that then, because you are on fire and you're talking so passionately about what you do. And this is how we connected, of course, as well. Through our mutual friend,
Yes.
Pete Torelli, who's actually the voicer. Shout out to Pete.
Yep. And you saw a clip on Instagram.
I saw a clip and we connected, and he obviously does the intro for this show as well. But let's just jump into what you do with podcasting. What does Podwave actually do then?
So the essence is we're end-to-end services within the podcast ecosystem.
Yep.
And with a lot of these products that you can make, there might be a studio that you can use, and then you take your files, and you go to an editor, and then you go to someone to make the clips, and then you go to someone to distribute. And over the last 12 months, there's definitely been a consolidation on just amazing apps and services. But there's still massive gaps in regards to you just want to be able to sit down, focus, and curate your content and not worry about all the things that can go wrong. And that was kind of capturing what we wanted to provide at Podwave Studios and tack on the other benefits like helping people get better at podcasting. And now I'm not the biggest name out there, but over my time I've learned techniques and strategies to help people that were probably in my shoes 2.5 years ago get the confidence to do it and understand that, yeah, it's just two people in a room speaking, but this can have parallels to public speaking, to emceeing, to just confidence in teams and boardrooms and all this other stuff that people don't necessarily understand purely from sitting in a room. So I've taken great pride in understanding that, you know, I'm still quite young, but I've got that experience and that expertise now in that field. And I still am constantly learning, but now to be able to provide that to others, not just mics and a few cameras in a room, but that layer is what I'm incredibly passionate and I love doing here.
As you're talking, I'm just thinking, you know, as entrepreneurs, all we do is solve problems. And I love the fact that you solved a problem for yourself first.
Yeah.
And now you built an entire business based around solving that exact same problem, but for multiple people.
Yeah.
And now organizations and so forth. I love that. And I love the offering as well.
Thank you.
Mean, because I'm a bit biased, but, you know, obviously I'm a client of yours and you're solving a problem for me because we're going to talk about podcasting as well because a lot of people want to get into it, don't know where to start maybe sometimes, but you provide a perfect solution for anyone, of course, that's listening as well, that wants to get into podcasting. You definitely want to connect with Ben and the team at Podwave, but you make that process simple. And I think that's what it comes down to is that if you can take care of the rest and we can do what we do, then it's a great way to leverage your marketing channels and brand because podcasting is just like a book as well, right? It's about brand building and like I said, 140, how many shows did you do?
I've done 128.
128.
But then I've done other sort of, you know, sample things. I do one for my back to floorball. Me and my mate do. I think we've done about 30 episodes in that. So yeah, experience.
Lots and lots of experience. Yeah. So, what advice then would you give to those? Because I mean, podcasting for me is kind of matured now a bit in the sense that a lot of people got into it. But now, if you want to get into it, what advice would you give to someone that wants to start their own podcast?
Well, if I quickly start by instantly flipping it back on you, were you nervous to listen back to your first one at all?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. Well, that's what I say to everyone is that the biggest hurdle is you've got to record something and just be comfortable realistically hearing yourself back at least once. And I say you want to be able to just do something. It doesn't have to go out to the public, but the biggest hurdle people face is just getting that first podcast done. And the beauty of this medium is that it can be 2 minutes, it can be 10, it can be 3 hours, it can be a live stream that's just going and going and going and it doesn't stop. But the biggest barrier that people go is I need it to be perfect and I hate the sound of my own voice.
Wow.
And getting past that, I say we do it even here when people come in, we'll be sitting and we'll just be chatting and we'll turn everything on and we'll almost nothing related to podcast, we'll be them asking questions about it and we'll show them that and we'll airdrop that to them. So then that I say is their demo podcast. And I go, it's got nothing related to your source material, but you now get to look at yourself and hear yourself and be, I've recorded something. And it's a simple thing that I think will kickstart you into doing it because even I've never gone back and listened to my first one. I never will realistically. Someone probably will and I'll be like, it's incredibly cringe, but I'm past that. Good. And that's the biggest challenge.
You mentioned to me off air last time, there's a magic number that if you're doing podcasting,
Yeah.
what's that number that you need
20.
to get? 20.
20. A lot of people will never make it past 1 as expected.
Past 1?
Yeah. Or just they might record 1 but that's it. They'll never get to the second episode. They'll just launch it and then whatever, just leave it. About 2 to 3% globally will make it past 20 episodes. And the biggest fatigue comes in that once you launch something, you get a bit of momentum, the first 1, 2, 3 episodes, but then there's this realistic drop off. All your mates, your friends, your environment, your community will always listen for the first, but then as expected, people get busy. So if you're not consistent, you're not releasing at the same time every week, if you're not posting your clips, it seems pointless, but it's the stuff that builds up that momentum and that consistency. And as soon as you break out of your inner circles, I call it, and I remember getting my first hater, I was like, I'm out of my bubble of what I would call people that may or may not know, but I was into the ether of this person has no idea who I am, but for some reason they hate the sound of my voice or the way I ask a question. And I was like, wicked. I'm now broken to a new orbit, so to speak.
Okay, so that's another level.
Yeah. But 20 is the milestone.
As you were saying that, I'm like, okay, so I'm in the 2 to 3% now, up to 44
You're
episodes.
You're
up there.
Yeah.
Great. But see, for me, it's a little bit different in the sense that, obviously I love communicating, love speaking to people, love the brand piece, the storytelling, and I just love listening to people and learning. I mean, that's why I do it. And the space of youth entrepreneurship is obviously my lane. So getting to be able to interview people like yourselves and then provide that value back to the next generation is the problem I'm really solving. Provide young people with a platform to be able to showcase their, business ideas, but also learn from people like Ben. And this is why let's not move away from podcasting right now, because I think there's a lot of people listening that are going to go, well, I want to do it. I've listened to Ben, got some great advice, but how do we break this down practically, Ben?
Yeah.
Like if you had to start today, what would you do practically?
When I started out of the backpack, I pretty much bought 2 microphones.
Yep.
They were USB-C connections, so they could plug directly into a computer, and I just recorded and bang into that. And a step removed from that, an iPhone. And you get 2 iPhones, put them on either side of the room, or a phone, anything that you've got handy, do a loud clap to sort of make sure you can sync them in the editing side. And then see what happens. You don't have to assume you've got to go video and multiple camera angles, because it's just not realistic to start. Yeah. And you've got to actually figure out if you enjoy it. And I think, probably echoing you enjoy this, I enjoy it. That's
so
why
pick your medium. Yeah. Pick your medium. If you like writing, write and blog and so forth. If you like film, YouTube. If you like, sound and audio, and podcasting is obviously the best. That's fantastic. So cost-wise, this also comes up. Just generally in startup, like how much do you need to spend? But keeping things nimble, what would be an investment level for someone that wants to get into this game?
Well, the beauty at the moment is there are paid platforms and services, Riverside. That's a prime example. Yeah. I started using Teams to speak with people remotely, and then just use editing softwares that are free. iMovie I'd use. It's not the most prolific, but it can help clean some stuff up. There's lots of apps online now, Descript, all the clip capacities. There's things that you can do, almost the free trial, to dip your toe in the water and figure out what you like. And from like a cost point of view, it's like jump on any of those free trials, experiment with that 60 minutes a month, just do a 20-minute podcast with your phones. You might end up, double handling a fair amount as you sort of fumble through that learning process. But from a cost point of view, it's like, I'd say if you can get 2 phones and record even 1 phone, that's going to be enough. It's not going to be perfect audio, but you don't have to be. And YouTube is free to distribute. Spotify is free to distribute. Apple's free to distribute. There's no barrier to put something out there. The barrier is actually just getting something to upload. And I think a lot of people will sort of circumvent that by just, it's too hard. And instead of just putting a phone in a, maybe not a busy coffee destination, but a boardroom, and just going for it and trying it, and you'll instantly find out, there's a bit of echo. Maybe I need more furniture in the room, or this room's got, if I'm doing video, this room has got terrible lighting. I need to try and remove it all and layer it back in. But this is all the stuff that you just start going down the rabbit hole. And, speaking from experience, that's exactly what you end up doing when you find something you like.
And then also is Podwave.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
And look, I would encourage, I did the whole scrappiness of, starting off nimble. But I always say, get yourself into a position where you can start getting some sponsorship, and a shout out to, my show sponsor, Curtin University and the Malka Foundation, who are backing me and have from the start, where you can actually invest in your podcast. And I would encourage anyone to obviously invest in services like Podwave, because you really just want to focus on what are your strengths, what are you really good at. I'm really bad and really weak at all the other stuff, the admin and so forth. But I'm good at this in terms of communicating and speaking. And if I can pay someone to do the rest, then I would, try my hardest to get some revenue in, or a sponsorship, or one sponsor to be able to, pay for a Podwave type service. So, but start off nimble.
Yeah. And the sponsorship monetization, a lot of people will go in with the idea that I want to be the Joe Rogan, the Stephen Bartlett, get the huge.
Everyone wants to be that.
Exactly. And
0.1%.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's very much unrealistic, but you'd be surprised that once you uncover that niche, and I love the phrase, my dad says it all the time. I think it's a quote that he heard from someone else, so apologies to that person. But, find a niche that's an inch wide and a mile deep.
Yeah, wow.
And once you find that and you can start tapping into it, you'd be surprised that there will be people that are willing to go, here's $250 to go buy 2 mics, or here's $500, depending on what age you are, to just give it a crack. And as I go back to the car wash, some doors will be like, I don't want a car wash. It's like, okay, cool. We'll go to the next one. And you just got to keep trying to do that.
I love that.
And yes, I say, like, as simple as it is, sending out emails to people. If you're young, there's more receptive to give you a shot. Even if you're a bit older, I'm sure there's people, just ask the question, see if there's a mate that's already got stuff. So many people have mics or video cameras that it's just getting dusty. You'd be like, hey, look, have you got something lying around that I could just try something? You don't have to go full investment and try and do the full whiz-bang production, but start with just the simplest things that you can find lying around your house, your grandma's, your best mates, your girlfriends, whatever, and just scrap it together and see what you can create.
Yeah, I love that. Hey, look, I said I was going to get you out in about 30 minutes. We're late there now. So a couple more questions, Ben, and thanks so much for, of course, sharing. Because podcasting is one of those things that everyone wants to get into.
So tip of the tongue now for a lot of people.
Yeah. So just a couple more questions, and I want to change gears a little bit in terms of this is something that comes up quite often, is founder health and wellbeing. So I want to ask Ben, yourself, how do you manage that? Because obviously, as we know in founder land, and just being a business owner in general, the ups and downs that you can have in one day. I like this,
you
right?
get some exponential sorts of feelings.
Yeah, right. The old, rooster to the feather duster pretty quickly, right? How do you manage your health and wellbeing? How do you recharge yourself after, a day or even a setback?
I've always loved sport, so I've always found that just playing floorball is a great release for me.
Okay.
And we've just finished our season, but there's always going to be little sort of spot fire training sessions and events that I can go to. I've always been in the gym. I'm quite thankful that my parents have always been pretty disciplined in the regards to, drink water, don't get stuck on the energy drinks and that.
Yep.
Eat a good diet, take care of yourself, gym. I've not been the great meditator or breather, but that's because I'm typically find that my strategy for that is doing sport. And after I've gone for a run or lifted some weights or, used to, kick the footy and that, don't do it anymore. But that is such a good way for me to just reset. And I'm still learning, I'm still getting better, but the ability for me to go, all right, I'm not going to be here at 8 a.m. because I've got a gym and just say no to some people because I need to take care of that and understand that you can't be there for everyone all the time and you've got to
That's a good point.
prioritize yourself. So I do that most times here. I'll if I can, I got a great team that I can be like, I need you here a bit earlier to help set up. I'll be there as soon as I can, but I've got this slither. And I would not expect any of my team members to not do the same. So if they were like, I've got a gym or a whatever appointment, I've got to do it, I'm like, go for it. Like, that's what I do. I'm not going to hold you to other standards that I don't do myself.
I love that. Second last question. What is the big vision for Podwave? Where do you want to take this thing? You're expanding by the week, by the sounds of it anyway, but you have an amazing business that you've built with Podwave. What's the vision? Where do you want to take this thing?
Well, I guess I'm not myself. I've got my business partner,
Yeah,
Ray
I was going to say
Mancini.
shout out to Ray. Yeah.
Yeah, we connected a couple of years ago, and the full intention was, see if this worked. And I think I'm too young and to an extent a little bit inexperienced in the business world of where this can go. I've never really been on a ride like this. I think I'm still very much enjoying every day. I'm soundboarding off anyone I can for ideas and different approaches and different things to test, and you hear it from all the top people. I mean, it's either just because he's interviewed enough time, but Basil's saying, they fail more times than they succeed. And it's all words until you're actually doing it yourself and you're like, geez, there's a lot of things that don't go right, but hey, the one little solution makes a massive difference. And there's so many of those little things that I'm approaching, but the big picture, I'm always pretty happy helping out anyone I can if they wanted to start a podcast. And I just like that human interaction element. I think that's something that we all sort of took for granted over the pandemic time. And I think the beauty of this is everyone's always excited to be in here. Everyone's pumped after they leave. The ability that complete strangers can have this wicked rapport afterwards in the confines of just a small room, I just am so incredibly excited to see. And the future where Podwave goes, in reality, we'd like to scale and get more in Perth, but just look at potentially other jurisdictions, look at other ways we can tack on not awareness, but training, because there's so many people that want to go down and build their own brands. I'm realistically going through that exact phase right now, being on the podcast with you and figuring out how to do that in authentic, transparent, away from all the fluff and the nonsense, and get better at doing it and be confident. And I think I'm seeing now people wanting to get media training and coaching from me, which I wouldn't have thought about. But now going through a lot of this and understanding how to speak, it's such a simple thing, but all the segues off that. And I think the ecosystem of what Podwave will be, it will constantly pivot and evolve. And that's just how I like to operate, and, similarly with Ray. So that's the future.
I love that. And we didn't talk much about your co-founder, Ray, but yeah, both of you been, credit to yourselves for building this amazing business. And like I said, I think you're on the cusp. Because I think every time we talk that there's someone new that wants to, have a podcast studio in their building or need some help with a podcast, which, like I said, we'll connect you to those relevant people. But final question, what advice would you give to not just a young person listening to the show that's wants to build a business or turn an idea into reality, but really anyone that is sitting on that fence and wants to dabble or wants to take the side hustle into the full-time hustle? What advice, maybe 1, 2, 3 tips you could pass on in your experience?
Tips, I mean, I'd say find your strength and know where your strengths are, and then complement that with people that can provide, I guess, your weaknesses or your gaps. I know I'm not the greatest in some aspects, and I'm happy to learn it, but there's people that know that a hell of a lot more. There's such a prolific business network in Perth that just reaching out on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, whatever. If they never get back, who cares? But just have a crack and send a message. Hey, look, I'd love to catch up because I admire what you do. Can I just ask you a few things? And use that as you said, the door opportunity. Never shy away from it. And just hustle. Just hustle. It's you're gonna have long days. I get reminded by my dad. He's like, you're in that phase now where it's you don't get to just clock off at 9 to 5, and I don't think I'd ever be that person. Who knows? We'll wait and see. But you've just got to hustle. You've got to be willing to message someone. I remember one of the cool groups we had in recently, the Anfield Rap. They're the Liverpool fan podcast from London. They were doing a live tour around Australia. It's another echo of how a podcast concept can suddenly become a whole business in itself. And that's just a show. And they reached out to me. I think they sent an email at 11:50 at night. And I saw it and I was like, what's this? So you got back to them. I'd booked them in. I think it was just before 2 a.m. They'd paid the invoice and everything. But that was purely because I was like, I don't want to let that opportunity slip. And even if it didn't, I'd be like, well, at least I gave it a crack. But I was like, that's not something that some people would be like, I'll leave it to the next day, or, I'll worry about it or send it to someone else to do. I'd be like, well, no, I can see it. I'm there. Why would I potentially go to bed early? I could just do this and see what happens. So hustle.
I love it. Ben, we'll wrap it up there. Thank you so much for coming on the show. You have some fantastic studios here. I'll also give a shout out to the team behind the scenes.
Yeah, Zoe and Cody.
Zoe and Cody, thank you so much for making this happen. And look, if you are a brand or an organisation that wants to get into the podcasting game, you just heard for the last 30 odd minutes from the man himself, Ben, who's talked all things podcasting. I'm sure he would love to help your business or your organisation. And of course, if you're a founder and a personal brand that wants to get into podcasting, I would recommend, again, connecting with Ben. If you're in Perth, Western Australia, he is a local in WA, but anywhere in the world, I'm sure you can connect with Ben on LinkedIn and, of course, all other socials like Instagram and so forth.
Yeah,
this is where we're connected.
Everywhere, yeah.
Thanks, Pete Corelli, again, for
literally seeing
that little post.
a reel and going, hey, what's this about?
Yeah, and here I am today. So anyway, thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for being so generous with your time and helping out our next generation of young entrepreneurs.
No, I appreciate it. It's been amazing, and yeah, thanks for having me on the show.
No
Wish you
worries.
the best of luck with the next 44 episodes.
Yeah, here we go. Thank you. Cheers.